Hello everyone, and welcome to Detective Hugh Brown and the Brooklyn Glizzy Gobbler. So this entire video is essentially one large choose-your-own-adventure style writing piece in which you, the player, make decisions for this character, Hugh Brown, and try to help him figure out the mystery of all these hot dogs and hot dog supplies going missing. The way this is going to work is that the narrator will read you the passage, and then once a choice comes along, timestamps will appear on the screen. Depending on which choice you want to make, you go to that timestamp in the video to continue your story. And if you want to happen to restart at any time, then go to this time in the video to restart. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you think about this, what improvements I can make, what else I could add, and yeah, have a good time enjoying the Detective Hugh Brown story. It's late on a Tuesday night, about quitting time for Detective Hugh Brown. Hugh sits at his desk, examining a case file he just closed, another mugging out on the streets. He's glad he can still clean up these Brooklyn streets, even as he nears retirement. It seems age can't catch up to Hugh Brown, as he can still track down criminals and fight toe-to-toe with ease. Hugh stares out his window at the sunset, thinking to himself, "Another crook behind bars. I'm glad I can help out the squad with these smaller arrests, but it sure has been a while since something big's come my way. I gotta show these newbies that this old man's still got it. One more big case before my retirement is just what I need. Something to tell the grandkids about." As Hugh gets up to leave the office for the day, Captain Tersh walks into the room. "Hey, Captain. I was just heading out for the night. Here's that case file I've been working on."
"Thank you, Hugh,"
the captain says as he takes the file from Hugh, briefly looking it over.
"I actually came to you to tell you about your next big case. What we're looking at here could be something big."
The captain shuts the door behind him and motions for Hugh to sit back down.
"Recently, there have been reports from grocery stores, convenience stores, and local vendors that their supplies of hot dogs and other hot dog-related items have been going missing. Buns, condiments, the works."
Hugh's eyes widen in intrigue. This has been the big break he's been looking for. A case that can truly challenge his skills as a detective. One last major case before his retirement.
"Do we have any leads, eyewitnesses?"
Hugh asks.
"All we have at the moment is the culprit's calling card. Whenever they strike, they leave a small business card with the Glizzy Gobbler typed across it. We've tested them all, no fingerprints,"
the captain explains. Hugh scratches his chin.
"Glizzy. I'm familiar with the slang. What was once slang for a pistol became synonymous with hot dogs after one of those big memes on the internet,"
Hugh explains.
"My kids are big into the social media and all that jazz. But if the crook knows the lingo, that has to mean they're pretty young."
Hugh stores the new case file in his desk as he puts on his coat.
"You can count on me, Captain. I'll get to work first thing in the morning."
Captain Tersh heads for the door.
"I will be counting on you, Brown. The future of barbecues and cookouts in the city are riding on your shoulders."
Hugh sits in his office and contemplates his plans and how he will go about solving this case for a few minutes, then heads out for the night. He's excited to work this case, but nervous, and will have to tread carefully. Hugh arrives back at his office the next morning, promptly at 9 a.m. He examines the case file a bit more at his desk, wondering what his first move should be.
I could always ask around at a supermarket, see what information turns up, or I could go straight to a stakeout,
Hugh thinks to himself. Hugh decides to investigate the supermarket that was recently hit by the Glizzy Gobbler, known as the Big Green Pear. Questioning the manager there and getting a closer look at the crime scene might do some good. Hugh arrives at the Big Green Pear and finds a small neighborhood store with a few workers scattered around. Hugh walks up to a woman at the front of the store standing behind the cash register. Her name tag says Wendy and has a small ladybug sticker attached to it.
Hi there, sir.
Wendy says cheerfully.
Is there anything I can help you find today?
Hugh replies,
I'm Detective Hugh Brown with the NYPD. I'm here to talk to someone about the disappearance of your hot dogs and whatnot. Do you know anything about the robbery, or know someone that does?
Wendy looks off towards the back and yells for the manager.
Charlotte, someone's here to talk to you about the robbery.
Another older-looking woman walks out from the back room. Her hair is a bit messy, and looking quite distressed from the robbery.
Thank goodness you're here.
Charlotte exclaims in relief. She approaches Hugh and shakes his hand.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Hugh Brown, a detective for the NYPD. I imagine you're in charge here?
Hugh asks.
Yep, I'm the manager and owner of this place.
Charlotte nods, putting her hands on her hips.
I'm glad they sent someone over personally to check in. I've been worried sick.
Hugh continues.
Did you happen to notice anything out of the ordinary on the night of the break-in? Or the morning after?
Charlotte elaborates.
Well, other than the calling card, I didn't notice anything else wrong. Everybody left the store that night at 10, and when we came back the next morning, all of the hot dogs, buns, and ketchup was gone.
Hugh pondered this for a moment before asking,
Do you guys clean the store every night before leaving?
Charlotte replies,
Yes, we do after closing.
Hugh then walks to the back of the freezer section, where the packages of hot dogs used to reside.
If my hunch is right, we might have something here,
Hugh says, as he removes a fingerprint dusting kit from his coat pocket. Hugh dusts the freezer all over until finding a singular fingerprint near the underside of the freezer. The fingerprint looks like it has a small cut on it down the middle.
Now we're getting somewhere,
Hugh says, holding up the dusted print.
This means that whoever robbed your store has a cut on one of their fingers.
Hugh puts the print back in his coat.
Don't worry, ma'am. When I bring this guy in, you'll be getting all of your stock back like nothing ever happened.
Hugh then says his goodbyes and walks out of the store with a new lead in hand. As Hugh walks down the street with his newly found fingerprint, he knows that the case is only beginning. With this evidence, he can either check the database to see if it matches any other past criminals, or check with his old friend, Ted Stitches Blemons. Ted Blemons was a runner for the crime syndicate years ago, but was convinced to turn over a new leaf by Hugh. He's got dirt on all the operations in the city, and it might be worth checking in with him. Hugh is torn between going with the old system or trying with his old friend, but makes his decision promptly. Hugh decides to check the police database back at the office to see if anything comes up. After putting the fingerprint in the computer, Hugh finds a match. This fingerprint belongs to Danny ONeal. After a quick search on his background, Hugh finds his current home address and arrives at the apartment to take him in. When Hugh arrives, however, it seems that no one's home.
NYPD, open up, Danny.
Hugh yells, knocking on the door. Hugh consults the landlord and is given the spare key to Danny's apartment and enters inside. Hugh breaches and clears every room in the apartment until only the bedroom is left.
We can make this much easier if you come out now, Danny.
Hugh exclaims, facing the closed door. The shadows shift from underneath the doorframe, but there's only silence coming from the room. Hugh barges through the door to find that Danny is wielding a large Bowie knife, greeting him. Danny lunges forward in an attempt to slash Hugh, but misses as Hugh dodges out of the way. With one swift kick, Hugh disarms Danny and points his gun at him.
Hands behind your head, ONeal. You're under arrest.
Hopefully, this interrogation will lead to some more info on the case. Hugh takes Danny ONeal back to the police station, ushering him into the interrogation room. After Danny is secured at the interrogation table, Hugh begins to look for answers.
All right, Danny. We found your fingerprint at the big green pear, and I know this isn't just a petty theft. You've got ties to someone I've been tracking down, and I'd like to see some answers.
Danny shifts in his seat in an attempt to look away.
I'm not telling you anything.
Hugh sighs.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Danny. You almost tried to kill me back at your apartment, and I will find the Glizzy Gobbler eventually, so it's your choice. You either go behind bars as a repeat offender for attacking an officer and theft, or you tell me a little about your supplier, we loosen the grip, and you get to walk away after a few months.
Danny looks down in contemplation, then back up.
I don't know who the Glizzy Gobbler really is. I just ran him his supplies, got my money, and I left.
Hugh raises an eyebrow.
His supplies? Was there a drop-off?
Danny continues.
I never saw who picked them up. I just left them at the abandoned warehouse on 37th Street.
Hugh shakes his head and turns back to Danny.
You did the right thing, bud. Thank you.
After putting Danny in the station's holding cell, Hugh set out to the warehouse to get his guy. Hugh arrived at the warehouse, watching his surroundings carefully as he approaches the building. There didn't seem to be anyone around, so he enters the building through the back entrance. Hugh examines the inside of the building to find cracked windows above his head, daylight seeping in through the cracks in the walls and ceiling, and an area near the middle of the warehouse holding a small table with an unlit lantern next to it.
Well, this is definitely the drop-off,
Hugh thought to himself.
But where are they taking all these stolen goods?
Before Hugh can evaluate his next plan of action, he turns around to see a wooden board flying towards his face. He's knocked unconscious. Hugh awakes to a bright light shining in his face and a sharp pain in his head. He looks around to find that he's been taken to another warehouse. The warehouse is lit by shop lights that look as though they've been set up recently, and thousands of hot dog packages, buns, and condiment bottles line the floors and walls. Several workers are scattered around the warehouse, moving product and filling crates. Hugh, realizing that he's been taken to the scene of the crime, expects only the worst and immediately attempts to leave. Hugh finds, however, that his hands have been bound to a large pipe behind him, his constraints tied firmly with rope. Just then, a man watching Hugh yells out,
He's awake, sir.
Another man comes out from behind an office door, wearing a long black coat and work boots.
Welcome to my operation, detective,
the man says. Hugh shakes off his headache the best he can and responds,
You're the Glizzy Gobbler.
The man chuckles and says,
It's so nice of you cops to recognize me by my street name, but I much prefer Chandler.
Hugh pauses for a moment before continuing. Okay, Chandler. Would you mind telling me what this whole operation is about?
It couldn't hurt to tell you my plan.
Chandler says, pulling a bronze revolver from his coat.
Might as well let you know what you were fighting for before you die.
In all of his years on the force, Hugh has never seen himself in a situation like this. No backup, at the mercy of a crime boss. Hugh analyzes his surroundings as Chandler continues to speak. He notices a small piece of rust sticking out of the pipe he is tied to, and begins to slowly use it to cut the ropes binding his hands.
This whole operation you see before you is the start of a new beginning in this city.
Chandler says, devilishly spinning the chamber of his revolver with his thumb.
With the hot dog shortage, everyone will be looking for something to serve at parties, sporting events, barbecues. And that's where we come in. You see, I believe that pierogies have always been the superior alternative, and we're prepared to become #1 in the market. Our family recipe will finally reign supreme, and I'll finally make Mother proud.
Hugh is dumbfounded by Chandler's plan, and responds after another brief pause. Pierogies? Why pierogies? Also, why did you have to steal all of these hot dogs to begin your food sale business?
With no competition, our first quarter in the market will lead to exponential increases in sales.
Chandler shouts back, his face turning red.
All my life, everyone preferred hot dogs over my pierogies. This is my big break, and I'm taking it by force. Unfortunately, there have been some loose ends to tie up along the way, but that's business. You're just the last bump in the road to success, I'm afraid.
Chandler, raising his revolver, is taken aback by Hugh, breaking free from his bonds. He misses his first shot on Hugh, and Hugh makes his next move. Hugh runs from Chandler, jumping over the railing and dropping to the warehouse floor below. He quickly retreats underneath the walkway above to avoid Chandler.
Don't just stand there, you morons!
Chandler yells out to his workers.
Capture him!
Just have to buy myself some time, Hugh thinks to himself, ducking out of an emergency exit. Hugh pulls his phone from his pocket and dials the station in a hurry. This is Hugh Brown, and I need everyone you got to come to the warehouse on Rich Doyle Boulevard immediately. I found the Glizzy Gobbler, but he's got all of his goons after me. The dispatch officer on the line shouts, "You got it, Hugh! Stay safe and we'll be there in 5, before disconnecting. Hugh continues to run while searching for some hiding spots, before finding shipping containers to evade the goons. Hugh turns to the corner, around the shipping containers, and does his best to conceal himself.
You check over there. We'll look over by these containers.
Hugh hears a man cry out. 2 shadowy figures approach, looking around in the dark of night for Hugh. As they turn the corner, Hugh jumps into the air, kicking the first goon onto the other, disorienting the second. The second goon lets out a shout
Hey!
before Hugh knocks him out cold. Knowing the next set of goons are on their way, Hugh looks for another vantage point. He notices unused crates from the operation and decides to hide inside one. The next 2 goons once again approach Hugh's position, looking around for the detective. Before either get the idea to look in the empty crates, Hugh pops out, giving the goons another surprise. He punches the first goon, causing him to drop his weapon, a large metal pipe. Hugh grabs the pipe, swinging at the second goon, hitting him in the stomach. The first goon attempts to retaliate after regaining his composure, but is met with his own weapon. Before Hugh can make his next move, however, he hears,
Enough of this!
echo from across the lot. He looks up to find that Chandler has his revolver pointed directly at his head.
Drop that pipe and accept your fate!
Chandler yells from across the lot. Hugh slowly drops his pipe and puts his hands above his head.
You almost got away there, Detective. I didn't want to have to resort to measures such as these, but you've backed me into a corner. It is such a shame you won't get to witness the future of the food market, but I guess some casualties are needed in this industry.
Hugh closes his eyes and prepares for the worst. However, just as Hugh accepts his fate, the large warehouse door draws open, with several of his police comrades pouring out to assist him.
Drop your weapon!
Captain Tersh yells.
We've got several shots on you. It's over, Glizzy Gobbler.
Chandler turns around to find what seems like hundreds of officers behind him, and realizes his empire is falling around him. He drops his revolver and puts his hands in the air as he's arrested. As Chandler is escorted to the back of his police van for grand merchandise theft, organized crime, and attempted murder of an officer, Hugh speaks with Captain Tersh.
Well, I can't say I ever had a doubt, Brown.
Captain Tersh says, patting Hugh on the back.
Another big case under your belt before your retirement. What pushed you to get it done so quickly, Detective?
Might have been a few things, Captain.
Hugh says, smiling back.
Determination, persistence, maybe even dumb luck. I'm just glad I'm still in one piece.
As more police vans drive away, full of suspects and accomplices, the captain looks towards the night sky.
This'll be something we tell rookies about for years.
The captain chuckles.
You know, if everyone on the force had your spark, there probably wouldn't be much for us to do anymore. That being said, good work as always, Detective. We're gonna miss you.
Thanks, Captain.
Hugh says, walking towards his car.
Glad I could help out one last time.
Hugh gets in his car and drives back to his house for the night, content with his last adventure on the force. Hugh kicks Chandler's arm, knocking his revolver out of his hands. Hugh gets ready to fight Chandler hand to hand, only to realize that several of Chandler's goons were now on the balcony with him, with more incoming. Hugh does his best to fight them all back, with a few punches and kicks landing, but is ultimately subdued again. Hugh is taken outside with a burlap sack over his head, and is disposed of by Chandler. Hugh decides to go to Ted's house and consult with him on the clue. If this is the work of a crime syndicate or mob boss, he'll know. Hugh walks up to the door and knocks, being careful to make sure that he isn't being followed. The door slowly creaks open, and a dark figure appears in the crack in the door. The door closes again, and Ted steps out.
My old nemesis Hugh!
Ted yells, extending his arms for a hug.
What brings you here? Business, I assume.
Hugh nods and steps inside.
You'd be right. I've been working on a case and thought I'd come to you for some advice.
Hugh pulls out the fingerprint and shows it to Ted.
You know anything about a group of crooks with cuts on their fingers?
Ted examines the fingerprint and shakes his head. I can't say that I do. Although, I have been hearing around that there's a new gang on the rise. Something about having a cover. Something about the food industry. Hugh cuts Ted off.
Food industry? The guy I'm after's been stealing hot dogs from stores. They call themselves the Glizzy Gobbler.
Ted continues. Well, if you want to pursue him, there's a bar a few blocks away where unsavory types hang out. Hugh stands up after getting the address from Ted.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Hugh says, opening the door. Ha! I do love a good cop story, Ted says, waving Hugh out. Hugh then plans to go to the bar later that night and attempt to scope out any suspicious characters. Later that night, Hugh walks to the address Ted gave him, seeing a staircase leading down towards the basement of a building.
Well, this is it.
Hugh thinks to himself.
Hope there's not a password.
Hugh walks up to the large painted door and knocks 3 times. A small panel slides open, and a large man looks through from the other side. The man's voice bellows from behind the door.
Before I let you in, you gotta answer some questions.
All right.
Hugh says, a bit confused. The man continues.
Are you from Brooklyn?
Born and raised.
Hugh responds.
Are you over 21?
The man asks.
Yeah, last time I checked.
Hugh chokes.
Are you a cop?
The man asks.
Nope.
Hugh responds. He hears a latch unlock, and the door opens. The man extends his arms forward, welcoming Hugh in. Hugh walks in to find that this underground bar is a bit grungy, with sticky floors and many unsavory-looking people sitting around the bar. He's not very surprised, seeing as how this seems to be a hideout for criminals in the city. Despite all this, Hugh decides to make himself at home by ordering a whiskey from the bartender. He sits down at the end of the bar, away from the other patrons. Despite keeping a low profile, eyes start to drift in Hugh's direction. A man sitting across the bar says, "We don't get many new faces in here. Where'd you learn about this place, bud?"
I was recommended by a friend.
Hugh replies, taking a sip from his drink. The man returns to his business, drinking from his glass. Hugh begins to survey the bar, once again looking for anyone who might be particularly suspicious. He notices another patron of the bar staring back at him, looking displeased.
New meat, eh?
The man says, standing up.
Then you wouldn't happen to know the rules of this bar then?
Other than pay your tab at the end of the night?
Hugh says, staring back.
I happened to see you out on the town this morning. You were the same guy walking into that police station.
The man says, cracking his knuckles.
We don't like cops around here.
Knowing he was in trouble, Hugh springs up from his seat and starts to fight off some of the patrons of the bar as they came towards him. He got a few good hits in before getting a bottle thrown at his head. All he remembers is staring up at the ceiling before waking up in the hospital. It's certainly not what he wanted, but that became the end of Hugh Brown's career. Hugh decides that his first move should be setting up a fake hot dog stand as bait for criminals. He rents a small snack cart from a vendor downtown and dresses it up the best he can as a hot dog cart. The cart reads, Jim's Dogs, $1 for plain dog, $2.50 for a chili cheese dog. Hugh then places a closed sign on the cart and waits in his car nearby for any potential criminal strikes. After a couple of hours of waiting, a man in a gray hoodie walks up to the cart. He examines the cart for a while before looking around its sides. He finds the bag of buns that Hugh placed in the cart and looks around to make sure no one saw the theft.
I've got you now.
Hugh thinks to himself, stepping out of his car.
NYPD, freeze!
Hugh yells out. The thief, seeing Hugh, makes a run for it. Hugh chases after the criminal for a block or two before catching him, tackling him to the ground.
You're coming in for a talk, pal.
Hugh says, handcuffing the criminal. Hugh brings the bun thief back to the station to interrogate him about the disappearance of hot dog supplies, hoping to get more information on the operation. He sits him down at the table and places his handcuffs on the table.
So let's start with your name.
Hugh says, leaning back in his chair.
I don't want to tell you anything.
The thief says, shifting in his chair.
Look, kid, I don't want to make this any harder than it has to be.
Hugh sighs.
The faster you tell me what you know, the faster we both get out of here.
The thief simply sits in his chair, not responding to Hugh.
I'm gonna need to resort to a new tactic to get something out of this guy.
Hugh thinks, wondering if he should go for good cop or bad cop. Hugh decides to be nice just this once and goes for the good cop routine.
Listen, kid. If you just give me some information, I'll let you off with a warning. I won't even write you up.
Hugh says reassuringly.
Just tell me who we're working for, or what this whole thing is about.
The thief speaks up after a moment of silence.
I was told not to tell you about the boss. I just drop things off and get paid. I need the money to pay rent.
Okay. If you just tell me about this drop-off point, I'll let you go home. Just make sure I don't catch you getting into any more trouble.
Hugh says.
There's an alley on 45th Street, and there'll be a door. I just knock on it and leave it there for the guy.
The thief says.
Perfect.
Hugh says, unlocking the thief's handcuffs.
Stay out of trouble.
Upon arriving at 45th Street, Hugh notices the alley that the thief must have been talking about. He walks inside slowly, looking around for anything out of the ordinary. After walking to the end of the alley, he realizes that there is no door. There doesn't even seem to be a trace of evidence. It seems that Hugh has been swindled into letting his only evidence go. Hugh decides to give the thief a little scare by going with the bad cop routine. Hugh stands up and slams his fists down on the table.
Listen here, you punk!
Hugh screams, his face turning red.
I can put you away for a long time and call it quits on this case. I've got no reason to deal with a criminal like you. So tell me who you work for, or get a nice cold cell with your name on it. The choice is yours.
The thief seems to lose his composure a bit, and opens up.
I don't know anything about the boss of this operation.
The thief replies, a bit flustered.
I just drop stuff off like this, and I get paid. I'm just trying to make my rent.
Where do you drop off your supplies?
Hugh responds, slowly sliding his hands off of the table.
It's just an alleyway on 37th Street. I leave it there in a marked bag, and I get paid the next day.
The thief says.
Good.
Hugh says.
I'll let you off easy this time. You're getting written up, but that doesn't mean I can't come back for you. So stay out of trouble.
After writing up the thief, Hugh heads down to 37th Street to investigate this drop-off point. Hugh makes his way to 37th Street to find that the alleyway that the thief was talking about is seemingly empty at first glance. But Hugh keeps a watchful eye looking around for evidence or any suspicious people around. After walking to the end of the alleyway, Hugh finds what looks like a crack in the wall. Hugh decides to inspect the crack a bit more and finds that the entire wall moves out where the crack meets the wall.
This is definitely something that was made by someone.
Hugh thinks to himself.
At least I know I'm in the right spot. But how am I going to catch someone using this site?
Hugh wonders if he should stake out this location or simply explore behind the door right away. Hugh decides to wait until night to catch someone using the drop-off point, and hides in a pile of garbage to conceal himself. After an hour of waiting, the sun begins to set. There's still no movement in or out of the site, so Hugh waits a bit more. Another hour passes, and there's still nothing suspicious to see. Hugh begins to wonder if anyone will be using this site tonight, but knows that if the thief planned on coming here to drop off supplies, it still must be in use. He decides to wait a bit more. As more and more time goes on, Hugh comes to the conclusion that someone may have seen him, or heard that someone was on the location, and the site must be out of commission. Unfortunately, that means Hugh has to go home empty-handed for tonight. And now he smells like garbage. Hugh decides to push past the crack as much as he can, revealing a small door-like hole on the other side. Hugh crawls inside to find an empty room behind it. It appears to be a secret room specifically built below the building's floors on the ground level. There's not much to see other than the gravelly floor. It's also quite dark inside the room, since there's no windows. As Hugh pokes around the room, he notices a stray flyer on the floor. Upon further inspection, Hugh finds that the flyer is actually an unwrapped package of hot dogs.
Another lead on this trail.
Hugh thinks.
But when will someone come to this drop-off?
That's the last thing Hugh remembers thinking before being knocked unconscious from behind.